Welcome back to Froggy French, where we dive into the most captivating stories from the internet. Today we're exploring 9 absolutely wild situations that will make you question everything from relationships to family secrets to workplace drama. You'll hear tales of betrayal, shocking discoveries, and moral dilemmas that will leave you wondering what you would do in these situations. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories, and let us know in the comments where you're listening from right now. My boyfriend secretly records our fights to show his friends. So I'm 24, and my boyfriend Jake is 26. We've been together for about 8 months now. Things have been pretty good overall, but we do have our disagreements like any couple. Nothing too crazy, just the usual stuff about whose turn it is to do dishes or where to go for dinner. You know how it is. Anyway, last weekend I was at his place and he went to take a shower. His phone was on the coffee table and it kept buzzing with notifications. I wasn't trying to snoop or anything, but the screen lit up and I could see it was his group chat with his college buddies. The preview showed something like, "Dude, she totally lost it again," with a bunch of laughing emojis. I felt this weird knot in my stomach, but I tried to ignore it. But then when Jake came out of the shower, one of his friends called him, and I could hear him saying stuff like, "Yeah, man, I got it all on video." She was screaming about the dishes for like 10 minutes. He was laughing while he said it. I confronted him about it later and he got all defensive. Turns out he's been recording our arguments on his phone for months and sharing them in his group chat. He claims he only records when I'm being unreasonable, and that his friends help him figure out if he's right or wrong. He said, "I'm being dramatic and that couples fight all the time, so what's the big deal? The thing is, I don't even think our fights are that bad. Like last week we had a disagreement because he forgot we had plans to go to my sister's birthday dinner and made other commitments. I was frustrated, sure, but I wasn't screaming or anything crazy. But apparently he recorded that too, and his friends were all telling him I was being controlling. I asked him to delete all the videos and he said he would, but honestly I don't know if I believe him. Maybe I'm overreacting, but it feels like such a violation of privacy. I keep thinking about all the times we've argued and wondering which ones ended up as entertainment. For his friends, he keeps saying I'm making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be, and that all guys talk to their friends about relationship problems. But recording me without permission and sharing it feels different, doesn't it? Am I wrong to be upset about this? Wow, that's actually really messed up. Recording someone without their consent during vulnerable moments is such a breach of trust. I can't even imagine how violated I'd feel. The fact that he's turning their private relationship issues into entertainment for his friends is just gross. And then to gaslight her about being dramatic when she's rightfully upset. I had an ex who used to screenshot our text arguments to show his friends, and it made me feel so paranoid and betrayed. This guy sounds like he has zero respect for boundaries or privacy. She deserves so much better than someone who treats her personal moments like content for his group chat. Well, let's hope the next one is less creepy. I just found out my twin brother isn't actually dead. This is going to sound completely insane, but I need to get this off my chest. I'm 31 years old, and my entire life, I've been told that my twin brother died when we were 3 years old. My parents always said it was a car accident, and they never really wanted to talk about it much, which I always understood because it seemed too painful for them. Last month, I was helping my mom clean out some old boxes in the basement after my dad passed away. I found this folder with a bunch of legal documents that didn't make sense to me. There were custody papers and something about child services, but the names were confusing and I couldn't really piece it together at first. I decided to do some digging online because something felt off. I found my brother's name in some public records, and it showed him as alive and living about 2 hours away from here. At first I thought it was just someone with the same name, but the birthday matched exactly, and even the middle name was right. I ended up hiring one of those background check services for like $40 and got more information. Turns out he's been living with my dad's parents this whole time. My grandparents, who I thought had died when I was young, are also apparently still alive and living in the same town. I confronted my mom about it last week, and she completely broke down. She admitted that when we were little, there was some kind of incident where I got hurt pretty badly and child services got involved. She said they thought it would be better if we were separated and that my brother went to live with my grandparents. She claimed they were going to tell me the truth when I got older, but then years passed and it became too complicated. The crazy part is I have these weird memories that never made sense before. Like remembering playing with another kid who looked exactly like me. But my parents always said I just had an imaginary friend. I also used to have these dreams about an older couple who would give me cookies. And now I'm wondering if those were actually memories of my grandparents. I don't know what to do with this information. Part of me wants to reach out to my brother, but what if he doesn't want anything to do with me? Maybe he thinks I abandoned him or something. And I'm so angry at my parents for lying to me my whole life. But my dad just died and my mom is already dealing with so much grief. Should I try to contact my brother? Or is it better to leave this alone after all these years? Oh my God. This is like something out of a movie, but way more heartbreaking because it's real life. I can't imagine learning that your entire family history was basically a lie, especially right after losing your dad. The fact that she's been having what were probably actual memories all along and being told they were just dreams or imagination is so sad. I think I'd be torn between wanting answers and being terrified of what else I might find out. But honestly, her brother probably has no idea what really happened either and might be just as confused about the whole situation. Life is way too short to not at least try to reconnect, even if it's scary. Moving on to another tricky situation. My boss has been stealing from our office charity fund. I work at a mid-size accounting firm, and we're about 15 people total. For the past 3 years, we've had this thing where everyone contributes to a charity fund. It's completely voluntary, but most people throw in $10 or $20 a month, and at the end of the year, we pick a local charity to donate to. It's actually been really nice, and we've managed to donate almost $3,000 each year. Our office manager, Patricia, is the one who collects the money and keeps track of everything. She's been with the company for like 8 years, and everyone really trusts her. She always sends around these emails updating us on how much we've collected and which charities people are suggesting. About 2 months ago, I was working late, and Patricia was still there too, which was weird because she usually leaves right at 5. I needed to ask her something about payroll, so I went to her desk, but she wasn't there. Her computer was still on though, and I could see she had her online banking open. I wasn't trying to snoop, but I noticed a transaction for about $400 to something called quick cash loans. That stuck with me because it seemed like a lot of money, and then I started noticing other things. Like Patricia mentioned, she was behind on her car payments a few weeks ago, and last month she was asking around if anyone knew about good deals on rent because her landlord was raising her rent. She also started bringing lunch from home every day instead of buying it, which isn't a big deal, but it was different for her. Then last week we had our monthly charity fund meeting where Patricia usually gives us an update. She said we had about $200 collected so far this year, which seemed really low considering it's already October, and we usually have way more by now. I started doing some rough math in my head based on what I know people have been contributing, and the numbers didn't add up at all. I decided to casually ask a few coworkers how much they've been putting in this year. Sarah said she's been doing $20 a month since January, Mike said $15 a month, and Lisa said she did a $50 lump sum back in March. Just those 3 people alone should be more than what Patricia said we have total. I don't want to accuse anyone of anything without being sure, but I'm really starting to think Patricia has been taking money from the charity fund to help with her financial problems. Maybe I'm wrong, and there's some explanation I'm not thinking of, but it all seems to line up too well. The thing is, I actually like Patricia as a person, and I know she's been going through a rough time lately. Her divorce was finalized earlier this year, and she's been struggling to make ends meet as a single mom. But stealing from a charity fund is still stealing, even if you're desperate. Should I talk to Patricia directly first, or go straight to our manager about this? Ugh, this is such a difficult situation because you can tell she genuinely cares about Patricia, but also knows this can't continue. Financial desperation makes people do things they never thought they would, and it sounds like Patricia is probably drowning in bills and saw this as an easy temporary solution. But the fact that it's charity money makes it even worse somehow. I think talking to Patricia first is actually the compassionate thing to do, because it gives her a chance to come clean and maybe work out a payment plan before this becomes a huge scandal that ruins her career. Sometimes people just need someone to notice what's happening before they can admit they need help. Well, let's hope the next one is less complicated. My neighbor and I are in a legal battle over trees I planted. I bought my house about 4. years ago, and it's been great except for one major problem, which is my next door neighbor Kevin. This guy is probably in his 50s, and he's one of those people who thinks the whole world revolves around him. Since day one, he's been complaining about everything I do, from where I park my car to how often I mow my lawn. The biggest issue started about 2 years ago when Kevin decided to throw these massive parties in his backyard every single weekend. I'm talking like 20 to 30 people, music blasting until 2 or 3 in the morning, people yelling and laughing right outside my bedroom window. I tried talking to him about it a few times, but he just said it's his property and he can do whatever he wants. I called the police a couple of times about the noise, but they basically said unless it's after 11 on a weeknight, there's not much they can do. The weekend thing doesn't violate any noise ordinances apparently. So I was stuck dealing with this every Friday and Saturday night, and sometimes Sundays too. Last year I decided to do something about it and planted a row of evergreen trees along the property line. I made sure they were on my side of the fence, and I checked with the city about any restrictions. The trees were pretty small when I planted them, maybe 4 feet tall, but they grow fast and now they're probably 8 or 9 feet. The trees have actually worked great for blocking the noise and giving me some privacy. I can still hear the parties, but it's way more manageable now. Kevin was not happy about it though, and he's been complaining constantly. He says the trees are blocking his view and making his yard feel closed in. A few months ago, Kevin started threatening to sue me over the trees. He claimed they're affecting his property value and that I should have asked his permission before planting them. I told him they're on my property and I didn't need his permission for anything. Things escalated when he hired a lawyer and actually filed a complaint with the city. Now I'm dealing with this whole legal mess over trees that are completely on my own property. Kevin's lawyer is arguing that the trees constitute a spite fence because I planted them specifically to bother Kevin. My lawyer says that's ridiculous and I have every right to plant whatever I want on my own land as long as it follows city regulations. The city inspector came out last week and confirmed the trees are properly positioned and don't violate any codes. But Kevin is still pushing forward with his lawsuit and it's costing me a fortune in legal fees. Maybe I should have tried harder to work things out with him before resorting to the trees. But honestly, I don't think he would have been reasonable. No matter what I did, was I wrong to plant the trees specifically to block out his parties? This is one of those neighbor disputes where both people probably could have handled things better. But honestly, Kevin sounds like he was being completely unreasonable from the start. The fact that he thinks he can throw loud parties every weekend and then sue someone for planting trees on their own property is just wild to me. I mean, spite fence or not, everyone has the right to privacy in their own backyard. I actually did something similar with my old neighbor, who had this annoying floodlight that shined directly into my kitchen window, except I used a tall privacy screen instead of trees. Sometimes you just have to take matters into your own hands when people won't be considerate. Moving on to another tricky situation. My best friend has been secretly dating my ex for months. I've been best friends with Emma since we were in high school, and we're both 28 now. She's always been like a sister to me, and I thought we told each other everything. My ex-boyfriend David and I dated for about 2 years and broke up around 6 months ago. It wasn't a terrible breakup, but it wasn't exactly amicable either. We just grew apart and wanted different things. Emma was really supportive during the breakup and helped me get through all the emotional stuff. She would come over with ice cream and we'd watch movies and complain about men together. She even said things like David never deserved me anyway and I could do so much better. I really appreciated having her there during that time. About a month ago, I started noticing that Emma was being kind of weird and secretive. She would get text messages and then quickly put her phone face down, or she'd cancel plans with me at the last minute saying something came up. A couple of times I asked what was going on and she just said work was stressful and she was dealing with family stuff. Then last weekend I was at the grocery store and I saw David's car in the parking lot. I didn't think much of it at first, but then when I was walking to my car, I saw him and Emma coming out of the store together. They were laughing about something, and he had his arm around her. I literally felt like I was going to throw up right there in the parking lot. I sat in my car for probably 10 minutes trying to process what I just saw. Then I decided to follow them, which I know sounds crazy, but I needed to know what was happening. They went back to Emma's apartment, and I sat outside for like an hour until I saw David leave. Called Emma that night and asked her directly, if she was seeing David. She got all defensive and said it wasn't any of my business who she dates. When I pressed her about it, she finally admitted they've been together for almost 3 months. 3 months of lying to my face while I'm telling her about guys I'm dating and asking for her advice. The worst part is thinking back on all the times recently when she was giving me dating advice or listening to me talk about feeling lonely. She was sitting there the whole time secretly with my ex-boyfriend. Emma says I'm being unreasonable because David and I are broken up and she can date whoever she wants. She also said they didn't plan for it to happen. They just ran into each other at a coffee shop and started talking. I asked her why she didn't just tell me from the beginning, and she said she knew I would be upset and she didn't want to hurt me. But keeping it secret for months and lying about it hurts way worse than just being honest would have. Am I being too dramatic about this? Or is this friendship over? Oof. This one hits close to home because I've been on both sides of this situation before. The lying for months is definitely the worst part here, way worse than actually dating the ex. Like, if Emma had just been upfront about it from the beginning, it might have been awkward, but at least it would have been honest. But sneaking around and then acting like a supportive friend while secretly being with her ex is just so two-faced. I get that these situations are complicated and messy, but 3 months of deception is pretty hard to come back from. Trust is like the foundation of any friendship, and once it's broken like this, it's really hard to rebuild. Well, let's hope the next one is less heartbreaking. I found a wallet with 5,000 euros, but it belongs to someone I hate. This is probably going to make me sound like a terrible person, but I need some perspective on this situation. I was walking home from work yesterday evening, and I found a wallet on the sidewalk near the bus stop. It was one of those expensive leather ones, and it was stuffed full of cash, like really full. When I opened it to see who it belonged to, I found the driver's license and nearly dropped the whole thing. It belongs to Marcus, who is this guy I went to university with about 6 years ago. We were in the same program, and he made my life absolutely miserable for 2 years straight. Marcus was one of those people who thought he was better than everyone else because his family had money. He would constantly make comments about my clothes or where I lived, and he had this way of making me feel small in front of other people. The worst incident was when I was presenting my final project, and he interrupted me multiple times to point out minor errors, completely humiliating me in front of the professor and the whole class. After graduation, I heard through mutual friends that Marcus went to work for his father's company and basically had everything handed to him. Meanwhile, I've been working my ass off for years just to pay off my student loans and afford a decent apartment. So when I saw his name on that license, I'll admit I felt this surge of anger and resentment. I counted the money, and there's exactly 5,040 euros in cash. That's more money than I make in 2 months at my current job. There's also credit cards and what looks like some kind of business cards, plus a photo of him with some woman I don't recognize. The rational part of me knows I should return the wallet because it's the right thing to do. But another part of me is thinking about how Marcus treated me and how this money could actually change my life right now. I could pay off my credit card debt and still have money left over for emergencies. He probably won't even miss it that much, given his family's wealth. I've been carrying the wallet around in my bag for almost 24 hours now, and I keep going back and forth. I looked him up online and found his contact information easily enough, so returning it wouldn't be difficult. But every time I think about calling him, I remember how awful he was to me, and I lose my nerve. Maybe I'm just looking for someone to tell me it's okay to keep it, but I know that's probably not the right answer. I also keep thinking about what if someone found my wallet with my rent money in it and decided to keep it because they didn't like me. That would devastate me financially. Should I return the wallet even though this person made my life hell years ago? This is such a moral dilemma, and I totally get why she's conflicted. Marcus sounds like he was genuinely awful to her, and those kinds of experiences can really stick with you, especially when it feels like the person just sailed through life without consequences. But keeping the money would probably eat away at her conscience forever, and 5,000 euros suggests this might be rent money or something equally important to him too. I think the real victory here would be being the bigger person and returning it, because then she gets to know she's fundamentally a better human being than he is. Plus, you never know. Maybe he's changed over the years, or maybe returning his wallet could lead to some kind of closure, or even an apology. Moving on to another tricky situation. I accidentally revealed an affair during my wedding speech. I just got back from what was supposed to be my cousin Rachel's dream wedding, and I think I might have completely ruined it. I feel absolutely terrible about what happened, and I can't stop replaying it in my head. Rachel is 29, and she's been with Tom for about 4 years now. They seem really happy together, and I was genuinely excited to give a speech at their reception. I've always been close with Rachel growing up, and I know a lot of stories about her dating history and relationships. For my speech, I wanted to include some funny memories about her past boyfriends and how we always knew Tom was different. I thought it would be sweet and entertaining. The problem is that I got my timeline completely mixed up. There was this guy named Alex that Rachel dated on and off for like 2 years, and I thought that relationship ended way before she met Tom. In my speech, I mentioned how Rachel had finally learned from her mistakes with Alex and found someone who actually treated her right with Tom. But apparently Rachel and Alex were still seeing each other for the first 6 months that she was supposedly exclusive with Tom. I had no idea about any of this. I genuinely thought Alex was ancient history. So when I made that comment about learning from her mistakes, everyone who knew the real timeline immediately understood what I was implying. I could see Tom's face change during my speech, but I didn't understand why at the time. I just thought maybe I was rambling too much or being boring. It wasn't until after dinner that Tom pulled me aside and asked me what I meant about Alex and the timing of everything. That's when I realized what I had done. Tom had no idea that Rachel was still involved with Alex when they first started dating exclusively. Rachel told Tom that Alex was completely out of the picture months before they got serious, but apparently that wasn't true. The rest of the reception was incredibly awkward. Tom and Rachel had this big argument outside the venue, and I could see Rachel crying through the windows. Several family members came up to me asking what was going on and whether I knew something they didn't. Tom's parents looked confused and upset, and Rachel's parents were furious. Rachel hasn't spoken to me since the wedding, and she won't answer my calls or texts. I've been trying to apologize, but I don't even know what to say. I never meant to reveal anything. I was just confused about dates and trying to be funny and nostalgic. Maybe I should have been more careful about what I said in such a public setting, but I honestly thought I was talking about ancient history. I keep wondering if Rachel and Tom are going to work through this, or if I just destroyed their marriage before it even really started. Did I mess up by not being more careful with my speech? Or is this just an unfortunate misunderstanding? Oh no. This is like my worst nightmare scenario for giving a wedding speech. The secondhand embarrassment I'm feeling right now is intense. It's one of those situations where everyone involved probably wishes they could just rewind the whole day and start over. I mean, technically, she didn't do anything wrong because she genuinely didn't know about the overlap, but the timing is just so incredibly unfortunate. Wedding speeches are already stressful enough without accidentally exposing family secrets. I feel bad for Tom too, because finding out about something like that in front of your entire wedding party has got to be humiliating. Hopefully Rachel and Tom can work through this once the initial shock wears off, because it sounds like the real issue is between them and not really about the speech itself. Well, let's hope the next one is less catastrophic. My siblings and I found a second will that changes everything. My father passed away about 3 months ago, and it's been really hard on all of us. He was 72 and had been sick for about a year, so we knew it was coming, but it still felt sudden when it happened. My dad was always pretty private about his finances, but we knew he owned the family house outright and had some savings and investments. There are 4 of us kids. I'm the oldest at 36. Then my sister Julie is 34. My brother Mark is 31. And my youngest sister Amy is 28. We've always been pretty close as a family, and Dad raised us to look out for each other after Mom died when we were teenagers. After the funeral, Dad's lawyer read us the will, and it was pretty straightforward. He left the house to be split equally between all 4 of us, along with his savings and investment accounts. The house is worth probably around $400,000, and his other assets were maybe another $150,000. So we were each looking at getting around $130,000 or so. Julie was designated as the executor since she lives closest to Dad's house and works in finance. She's been handling all the paperwork and going through his personal belongings to get everything sorted out. Most of us have been helping when we can, but Julie has definitely been doing the heavy lifting. Last week, Julie was cleaning out Dad's bedroom and found this old shoebox in the back of his closet. Inside were some old photos, a few pieces of Mom's jewelry, and another will that was dated about 6 months more recent than the one the lawyer had. This second will was handwritten and signed by Dad, and it completely changed how his estate was supposed to be divided. In the new will, Dad left the house specifically to Mark instead of splitting it between all of us. Mark is the only one of us who's married with kids, and the will mentioned something about keeping the family home in the family for the next generation. The rest of the assets were still supposed to be split equally, but obviously losing the house means the rest of us get much less overall. When Julie found the will, she called all of us together to talk about it. Mark was shocked and said he had no idea Dad was planning to do this. Amy and I were honestly pretty upset because it felt like Dad was playing favorites. Even though I understand his reasoning about Mark having kids and everything, the complicating factor is that we're not even sure if this handwritten will is legally valid. Julie talked to the lawyer and he said it might be legitimate if it meets certain requirements, but it would need to be verified and there could be challenges to it. He also said that fighting it in court would probably cost more than any of us would gain. Should we honor what we think Dad's final wishes were or stick with the official will the lawyer has? This is such a tough family situation because there's no clear right answer and someone's going to end up feeling hurt no matter what they decide. The fact that the dad didn't tell anyone about changing his mind makes it even more complicated because now they're all left guessing about what he really wanted. I can understand why the other siblings would feel like it's unfair, but I also get the logic of wanting to keep the family house with the person who has kids. These kinds of inheritance disputes can absolutely destroy families if they're not handled carefully. Maybe they could find some kind of compromise where Mark gets the house, but pays the others something to even things out a bit. Moving on to another tricky situation. My business partner stole my idea, and I found a way to get revenge. About 2 years ago, I came up with what I thought was a really good business idea for a mobile app that helps people find dog-friendly restaurants and cafes in their area. I'm a software developer, and I had been working on it in my spare time for months, doing all the research and building a prototype. My friend and former coworker James heard about what I was doing and seemed really interested in partnering with me. He's more of a business and marketing guy, so I thought it could be a good combination of skills. We started meeting regularly to discuss the concept and how we could turn it into a real company. James was really enthusiastic and had lots of ideas about features and how to market the app. We spent probably 3 months planning everything out together, and I showed him all my code and research. We even started talking to a few potential investors and got some positive feedback. I was feeling really optimistic about the whole thing. Then, in December, James suddenly stopped returning my calls and emails. At first, I thought maybe he was just busy with the holidays or dealing with personal stuff. But after about 2 weeks of radio silence, I started getting suspicious and decided to do some investigating. I found out that James had registered a company with a very similar name to what we had discussed, and he was already pitching our exact concept to investors as his own idea. When I confronted him about it, he claimed that the idea wasn't really mine because we had developed it together, and that he was just moving forward with the business plan. I was furious, but I wasn't sure what I could do legally since we didn't have any formal partnership agreement. My original prototype and research were still mine, but proving that I came up with the core concept first would have been difficult and expensive. So I decided to get creative with my revenge. I knew that James didn't actually have the technical skills to build the app himself, and I was pretty sure he was planning to hire developers once he secured some funding. I also knew that he was exaggerating his progress to investors and probably promising a working product much sooner than would be realistic. I spent about 6 weeks building a much better version of the app with additional features that we had never discussed together. Then I launched it quietly and started getting real users and positive reviews. I didn't do any major marketing, just enough to establish that my app was live and functioning. When James eventually pitched to a big investor group that I had connections with through my previous job, I made sure they knew about my app and how long it had been live. The investors did their due diligence and quickly figured out that James was trying to pitch them a concept that was already successfully implemented by someone else. James lost the potential, investment, and his credibility took a major hit. Now I'm getting interest from several investors, and my app is actually doing pretty well. Maybe I should have handled this more professionally, but I felt like he forced my hand by stealing my work. Was I justified in undermining his pitch, or should I have tried to resolve this differently? Honestly, this feels like pretty satisfying karma to me. James basically tried to steal her life's work, and then got outsmarted by the person who actually knew how to execute the idea properly. The fact that he thought he could just cut her out and hire other developers to build what she had already created shows how little he understood about the technical side of things. I've seen this happen in the tech world before, where business people think developers are just interchangeable and don't realize that the person who conceived the idea probably knows it better than anyone else. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire, especially when someone tries to screw you over like that. Thanks so much for sticking with us through all 9 of these incredible stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts on which situation shocked you the most or how you might have handled these dilemmas differently. Remember to check out the Google form in our description below, where you can submit your own real-life stories for us to feature. All submissions will be read completely anonymously in upcoming videos, so don't hesitate to share your experiences. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed today's content, and we'll see you in the next video.